The Hippocratic Oath promises to heal. It promises to alleviate suffering. But no one prepares you for the day when a patient looks you in the eye, describes a pain that is real, a suffering that is palpable. And you, with all the hospital's technology, with all your years of study, find absolutely nothing. Welcome to my shift. Today, I'm going to tell you the story of Daniel, the patient who made me question everything I thought I knew about medicine, and who nearly cost me my faith in science. Daniel was admitted on a Tuesday morning. A 28-year-old athletic guy with no relevant medical history. His complaint, an unbearable burning pain in his left leg. It wasn't a cramp. It wasn't an injury. He described it as if he had acid flowing through his veins. At first, it was a simple protocol, acute pain. I ordered Exors, negative. No fracture, no hairline crack. Complete blood work, normal white blood cell count, inflammatory markers, kidney and liver function. Everything was perfect. My initial assessment was ambiguous. Possible atypical muscular overexertion. I prescribed strong analgesics and rest. But Daniel came back that very night, crying out in pain. And that was the moment I knew this was not an overexertion part. 2. The frustration of all normal the case quickly became a medical mystery. Daniel was not faking it. His heart rate was skyrocketing from the distress. He was profusely sweating, and his muscle tension was evident. The pain was real. But the cause? I decided to escalate. We ordered an MRI to rule out anything subtle. A hernia, a nerve compression, anything. He went through the scanner. Hours of waiting. The result? Completely clean. There was no inflammation, no edema, no compression. That is where the frustration began to eat away at me. I started reviewing the nursing notes. Daniel wasn't sleeping. He was writhing. We gave him more morphine, and he barely managed a couple of hours of peace. His family kept asking me, "Doctor, what is wrong with him?" And my answer was the same lie. We are looking, we are close. The system started to label him. Colleagues on the morning shift who hadn't seen Daniel agonizing began suggesting the obvious and most painful conclusion. It's psychosomatic. That the pain was all in his head. I resisted. His suffering was too physical, too intense to dismiss. We entered an elimination phase. Is it a rare viral infection? An atypical autoimmune syndrome? We ordered panels of tests so extensive they looked like a PhD thesis. Rheumatology, neurological, metabolic screens. Every single test came back with the same accursed label: normal. I remember the night I sat down beside him. Not as a doctor, but as an exhausted person. I asked him, "Daniel, is there anything you haven't told me? Any substance, any trip, any strange occurrence?" He just looked at me with deep despair. "Doctor, I just want this to stop. Tell me I'm not going crazy." Part 3. The invisible clue and the all-nighter climax sitting in the doctor's lounge. The dense, cold air was burning my throat. My eyes were swollen from fatigue, and the fluorescent overhead light was drilling into my skull. I had moved from frustration to a silent rage against my own incompetence. Daniel was still suffering. I decided to ignore the word diagnosis. I grabbed Daniel's file for the 10th time, but this time I wasn't looking for a label. I was looking for a story, a human error, a trivial detail. I read every line, every nursing note, every glucose figure, as if they were the verses of an encrypted poem. And there it was, hidden. In the regular medications section, where Daniel had written none, only vitamins. A keen-eyed intake nurse had added a small, handwritten note. A minuscule line that the system had overlooked. Patient states he has been taking a natural supplement to improve physical performance. That line electrocuted me. It wasn't the leg. It wasn't the pain. It was the story of the chemicals Daniel had put into his body. A red light flashed in my mind, a blaring alarm. Natural supplements are often a minefield. They can be a cocktail of undeclared substances, or, worse yet, they can interact with the body's biochemistry in ways that standard medicine doesn't even consider. I plunged onto the internet. I searched rare databases, toxicology forums, articles in foreign languages. I spent hours drinking cold coffee and feeling the clock ticking down on Daniel. The literature was vague, contradictory. I was completely stuck. The clue was promising, but the knowledge was out of reach. The breaking point arrived. I did what every doctor must do when they hit a dead end: accept momentary defeat and ask for help. I called my friend, the toxicologist, Dr. Richard. It was 3:20 in the morning. I woke him up, and with a raspy voice, I spilled out the entire case, the burning pain. The clean MR is the patient's despair. He was my Sherlock Holmes. With a calm I lacked, he asked me for the composition I found on the supplement label. And then, a crucial question: what has Daniel eaten in the last 72 hours? I started reviewing the hospital diet. But then I remembered a comment, something like blue cheese and cured meats that my sister brought. Suddenly, Dr. Richard stopped me. His voice became sharp, focused. I have it. It's a poison, doctor, but a subtle one. It's a mix of a certain herbal extract, which is harmless on its own. But when combined with something else, it inhibits a key enzyme. The crucial enzyme, the one that breaks down a chemical called histamine. Richard explained the reaction to me like an internal time bomb. If that enzyme is blocked by the action of the herb, the histamine, which is normally released by foods like cheese and cured meats, builds up uncontrollably. And what does excess histamine do? It causes massive pain and nerve inflammation. It causes that searing acid sensation. What Daniel was feeling wasn't a structural problem, not a fracture. It was the most intense and localized allergic and inflammatory reaction imaginable. It wasn't in his bones or nerves, but in his blood chemistry. The phantom diagnosis wasn't on the clean scanners, but in a saturated blood vessel screaming with pain. In that instant, I slumped over the desk, shaking with relief and horror. I felt a knot of guilt in my stomach. I nearly labeled him crazy. I nearly discharged him without a solution, condemning him to that unbearable pain. All because I dismissed a simple natural supplement. Medicine is the art of listening, and I had been deaf. The healing and the unforgettable lesson, the treatment. After all, the witch hunt was ironically simple. Not a complex surgical procedure, nor an experimental protocol. Simply, very powerful antihistamines to fight the uncontrolled histamine, and the strict order to immediately suspend that treacherous natural supplement. The response was dramatic. In less than 24 hours, the difference was like night and day. Daniel, who the previous night was writhing and begging for peace, was standing up. Walking with only slight residual discomfort, but walking. The pain, that acid he felt in his veins, had vanished. It was living proof that the biochemical hypothesis was correct. It was like watching chemistry materialize into a cure. When I discharged him on Friday, Daniel approached me by the door. He shook my hand with a firmness he hadn't possessed before, and he thanked me. He said something that will resonate with me for the rest of my career. "Doctor, you were the only one who believed me. Everyone else just saw paperwork." That simple sentence hit me harder than any 36-hour shift, harder than any failure. It showed me the true dimension of failure in medicine. It is not failing to cure. It is failing to listen. It is the arrogance of believing that a patient's reality does not exist simply because your tests are consensus. "All my tests are skews," my friends, is not just about a rare diagnosis you read in a toxicology manual. It is a harsh mirror reflecting the cognitive bias in medicine. It is the trap of our system. If a shadow doesn't appear on the MRI, if the marker doesn't spike in the blood test, then it doesn't exist. Daniel did not have a visible disease, but his suffering was as tangible as a broken bone. This is about the radical humility we must possess as professionals. We must accept that our knowledge is only a limited map of a vast territory. Sometimes the textbook doesn't have the answer, and the diagnosis is found not by looking at the latest high-tech screen, but by attentively listening to the patient's complete life narrative. The phantom diagnosis didn't just cure Daniel. It taught me the most important lesson of my career. It taught me to trust the suffering right in front of you, even when science momentarily tells you it's impossible. Medicine is not just cold analysis. It is human connection and relentless curiosity. Daniel was discharged. I finished my shift, exhausted. Yes, but with a renewed certainty. The key to saving a life, the key to avoiding a monumental error, is sometimes hidden in that small line you choose to ignore, in the anecdote you dismiss. We must learn to be detectives, not just technicians. And you? Have you ever felt a pain that no one believed? What did you finally discover? Leave it in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe for more raw and real stories from my shift, the place where science meets the human soul. I'll see you in the next video.